Well, welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where we are your resource for education, connection, and collaboration to support you on your wellness journey. And I would like to start by thanking our sponsors, Josee Madison and White Sands Premier Travel. These sponsored appearances is what makes Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross possible. Now, this dynamic motivational speaker, innovator, and entrepreneur has not only rebuilt her life at 41, but she has also transformed her challenges into a thriving multi-six-figure business. And with her spirituality, S.M.A.R.T.E.R, and we'll explain that one soon, framework, Josee embodies heart-centered principles that inspire hundreds to break free from limiting beliefs and find their true purpose. Josee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled for being here. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. I love having all these different people and different aspects on. So can you share like a pivotal moment in your life that prompted you to embrace change and rebuild your path?
Well, like you said earlier in the introduction, my whole change started at 41, but my life changed at 25 when I left 4 months before the wedding. I was supposed to get married at 25 and following, like everybody does, government job. I had my boyfriend since I was 18 and I'm French Canadian. So French Canadians marry early, they have kids and the whole thing, right?
Okay.
And so I just thought, no, I can't do that. And I left 4 months before the wedding in the hopes that life would help me and carry me through what I didn't know yet was going to be. But I had to leave. I just knew I had to leave. And so I did. But the pivotal moment, I mean, I've had a lot of skips and jumps and hiccups and bumps from 25 to 41. Had many jobs, many careers. But I have to say that with all those things, there was one thing in common, and that was that my heart was actually guiding me. And it's through my struggles that I found my strengths. And then I was like, oh, nope, that's not it. Let's move on. And so I think for me, at 41, I became sober. So that was a big thing. I used to work in the music industry in Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm originally from Canada, but moved to Nashville in 2008 to work with an artist in the music industry. And so music and tour and all this stuff is a lot of unhealthy habits that develop. For me, there was unfortunately, some alcohol that was abused. And so at 41, when I got sober, that's when I really saw my life become transformed through spirituality and an absolute awakening of my heart, like to truly listen and surrender to my heart.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I have a military background. I've always been a heart-led person myself too, but even military, that can tend to be a problem, unhealthy
Mm.
habits with the drinking to cope with
Yes,
different
and
things as
and I'm
well.
married to a military, and I married late, so maybe that will be a question to for the listeners that it's never too late. But fortunately, my husband is healthy in that department. So to have found him when I was 45, first marriage. Remember, I was supposed to marry at
Mhm.
25. 20 years later, I met the man of my dreams, and I think you and I have had a conversation about soul to soul. But yeah, so I'm happy about where I'm at now.
Yeah. It's amazing to me too that something told you or realized that 4 months before a wedding that this was, you know, and you knew to get out and to just cut it off before it started. Because there's a lot of us, I think, at that point where everybody's already invested a lot of time, money, or whatever, and you
Hmm.
start to feel obligated
Hmm.
to do it. But you followed your heart, which is absolutely wonderful. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced while breaking free from alcohol addiction, and how did you overcome them?
Well, what I realized, and for me, my sobriety has a lot to do with spirituality. And what was my biggest challenge is I was still in my head. I was trying to think my way to betterness as opposed to being in my heart. I was still trying to control things. I still thought that I had to think things through as opposed to feel things through so I can really be led. So that was one of the biggest challenge is that I realized that I was spiritually sick, basically. Um, because for me, spirituality was religion, and I was kind of like iffy on that in the first place. But I started to understand fully when I opened my heart, as opposed to getting out of my own way and out of my head. So that
Yeah.
was biggest challenge for sure. Yeah.
That's another similarity I think you and I have. But so let me ask you then, how do you define spirituality now?
Spirituality is all about listening within. So for me, with the spiritually smarter path, this is why it was born. Is it was born out of necessity for me to how do I connect? I was always someone with goal oriented. I'm a type A personality. When I'm gone, I'm on it. You know, and so I always held on to that SMART goal, you know, the S something that's
Hmm.
whatever, attainable, whatever. I can't remember because my smarter now has taken
Specific,
over.
measurable,
Yes,
attainable. Yeah. Yep.
relevant and
Relevant and timely.
yes.
Hmm.
Well, for me, that was always the case for me. I had to focus on that. So when I fell ill in 2011, when I was 41, my body completely shut down. And I was like, okay, I can't work smart anymore. I have to be smarter. I'm like, okay, this is weird. And then when I realized that spirituality for me was a connection to myself, I started really going within. And that was hard because I'm a, you know, thinker.
Hmm.
I solve problems. I love puzzles. Well, you can't be in your heart if you want to solve puzzle. You got to be logic, but that was not the case. So for me, I found that spirituality is really just going within. It doesn't have to be prayer. So
Right.
spirituality for me is a complete surrender to something that's bigger than me, that knows me more than I know myself. Because what we do as humans is when we want to achieve something, we have an idea of we want to do something. And what stops us is because we're in our head only looking at what's in front of us. And that's all we think we have access to, which is, for me, I learned it's behind that idea.
It
That is
is.
the bigger picture that I don't see. So spirituality means to me, see the bigger picture. And I've got stories galore to explain that, you know, about how I surrendered and exactly what happened, something that came out of nowhere, you know. Um, so when we have time, I'd love to share that story, but because it is related to spirituality and how you surrender.
If you'd like to share the story, go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when it was in 2010, I fell ill. I had left the music industry, and I had a contract as an event organizer, and that particular boss lost her contract, so she had to let me go because we had no events to organize anymore. She had lost her contract, and I was living with my savings, and it was dwindling. And I thought, oh my God, you know, I'm Canadian. I'm here on visas. I'm going to lose my visa. What am I going to do? I'm almost broke. Am I going to be able to go back to Canada? Like, what am I going to do? I was completely terrified. And the same thing happened when I was 25. Something told me, I just laid down on the floor in the kitchen of the room I was renting, a small little room in a house. And I just laid there for about 45 minutes. And I'm like, you know what? I'm letting go. I don't have an answer right now. I'm getting out of my head. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. I'm going to surrender. And I just focused on my breath. Every morning I would wake up and I'd be like, nope, I'm letting go. I know something's going to happen. I don't know what it is. And that's what I'm afraid of, is I don't know what it is.
Right.
And a week later, I get an email from a financial advisor that I had worked in Canada back in 1999. Now we're in 2011. All right.
You're right.
So I get this email. He's like, Jose, I hear that you've not been living in Canada for 2 years. Please call me. And I'm like, okay. So I give him a call. And he said, you have some investments here that you can't no longer have here because you're not considered a resident. We have to save, transfer it to the US. And I'm like, what investments? And he said, well, remember when you worked back in the government, you had opened an account and money was always withdrawn from your paychecks and put into this account. And I thought, I, I didn't even remember that. So I'm like, okay, how much? Almost $48,000
Wow.
out of nowhere. How could I have possibly known that this was coming to me? And that's what I mean by when you surrender, the universe has plans that you don't even think of. And
Yeah.
I have actually I'm writing a book about all the stories that like that happened to me as proof that you can listen to your heart. And we have some beliefs that are stopping us from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a lot of heart-centered people out there, and a lot of people tell me I'm guilty of being one of the overthinkers. I've had to ditch a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that. But like you
Mm-hmm.
said, when you just stop letting all the bad broken records play in your head and just
Yep.
kind of like you said, give in and just let go, it's like it always works itself out. And damned if something doesn't pop up like an email or a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything. It's amazing what is out there.
Yes.
But you have a fascinating framework. So we already mentioned a little bit about the SMART, but like you said, yours is SMART-E.R. So
Yes.
framework. So can you explain the core principles behind that and how it shaped your journey?
So the reason it shaped my journey is I'm a logical person too at heart, but I know that I'm also very spiritual and very intuitive. And I've been born with that gift, and I'm really using it now. So I wanted to create something that was spiritual, but at the same time could teach the logical people that you can use spirituality in a smarter way. So to break it down, each acronym of SMART-E.R is a tool to use to tap into your heart. So S, for example, is self-awareness. So as self-awareness for me, I teach you to how to recognize where is your heart, and where, not physically, but what are you feeling in your heart, is the foundation of all things. And self, for me, it's sacred eternal life force, aka your heart. So when I ask my clients that today we're going to work on being self-centered, they're like, what are you talking about? It's self-centered. For me, I love to challenge the status quo. Like my posts on LinkedIn, people are like, I never thought of it that way. But that, I think my purpose is to help people think differently.
Right.
And then M is mindfulness, to practice mindfulness. And if you don't mind, maybe, the listeners, if you're driving, don't do that, but to just close your eyes and feel your breath, just inhale and feel your breath. In mindfulness, it takes you right away into the moment, and your thoughts are much clearer. The process of shutting down the fight or flight and activating the rest and digest. This is where your best decisions can come from. And that's from the heart, you know? And then the A is for authenticity, to speak your truth. Once you have your mindfulness, you're connected to your heart, you've got your mind that's well balanced. What's holding those two together is the throat. So with authenticity, you can speak your truth and be comfortable with people, whether they like it or not, but it feels good to you, you know?
Right.
R is to build resiliency. Again, I show people that sometimes we attract things to make us look resilient. And I have an online course that is coming out in January that gives you exercises to realize, okay, some things are happening out of my control, but did I attract this? For people to see, oh, she is so strong. So energetically, we have to be careful about that as well. Um, T is trust, heart centered decision. When you make a decision, to trust that it's coming from your heart, you know. E is emotional intelligence. And that's for the logic people, to know that in the moment, when you're having a moment of emotion, to really pay attention. What is going on with me? So you can be empathic to others too. So practicing that emotional intelligence. And then the last one is reflecting on your journey. Using all these tools will get you into a spiritually smarter, balanced life. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love how, yeah, you even took like the SMART acronym, but you add ER, but you made it totally different for
Mm-hmm.
heart-centered and heady people.
Yeah, exactly. Because I do in my coaching, I do use a lot of science, with
Hmm.
quantum physics and spirituality, meditation, breath work. And so they are all combined. Some things in science are totally spiritual, but people don't get it that way. So this is why we have to explain it to them in a scientific way. But really, they're learning the spirituality of things, of energy.
Right. Yeah,
It's kind of like a,
we are all energy.
yeah, absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how did the societal pressures and the concept of shoulds influence your life before the transformation?
Again, that took me back when I was 25. I
Hmm.
should be getting married. My mom was married at 18. She had 4 children, and she would say, well, time is, you've been dating this guy for a while now. Time is of the essence, and you have a good job, and you both have this and that. And I thought, yeah, I should be getting married. I should be doing this and that. And I remember I was back then, I took a small course on human resources, and the mentor was incredible. And I remember telling him, I said, I'm confused. I don't think I want to get married. I don't think I'm ready. Like, I don't think that that's my path. And I'm really torn on what I should do. And I remember him turning around and he said, why are you bothering me with this? You already know the answer. Stop wasting time and stop wasting your breath and stop wasting my time. You know what you got to do. And I was so insulted because he wasn't listening to me. But actually, if I meet this guy one day, I don't know if he's still alive because he was quite older. But he actually changed the whole course of my life, because I remember going home that night and I thought, he's right. I already have my answer. And so when I was, it was funny because I stayed in the job that I stayed. I left my marriage, but my soon to be marriage or whatever. And then I was still working at the government, but I left at 32 when my boss told me I'm retiring. And what came out of my mouth, what surprised me as much as it did to him, I said, I'm retiring too. And he's like, well, you're 32. Where are you going to go? I'm like, I'm not entirely sure, but I'll figure it out. And at that point, I was studying at college part time, business management, and that's when it all started.
Yeah, it's amazing when we get stuck into all those what we should or we're supposed to do, and it's like, says who?
Exactly.
I'm like, it's our life. It doesn't mean just because that's the way it's always been that that's what makes
No,
it right for you.
I agree with you, but I think what happens is that we want to be loved,
Hmm.
and so when we do something that's out of the ordinary, that is out of the society expectation, we stand out. And we have to love ourselves enough to be okay with standing out. Because if we don't, we're going to go back to the comfort zone for others to love us.
Right. Yeah,
And I
because
think,
some may wind up even ridiculing you for it, and others, and it may be
mhm,
because they wish they were doing the same thing as you, but don't maybe
mhm,
have the guts to do it, or
yeah,
they just don't understand it. But
it's scary to change, but if you really tap into your heart, all that matters, your heart's not going to lie to you.
right,
It's not. you know I mean, look at all the leaders in today's world. They'll tell you, I was ridiculed, I was fired, I was told I was silly from doing this, and that I was going to lose, that my company's going to. They went through, they just, and I'm getting through that too with my new spirituality and the smarter path, and self is now a different definition, and you know for me, I have a calling to help people open up, and that's what I'm going to do no matter what. And I surround myself with people who support me, and those who don't, then that's okay.
yep,
you know
yeah, 100%. I always say we're going to resonate with who we're meant to resonate with, and if we don't, hey, that's okay. That's why we're all individuals. We're all different.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So, what role did storytelling play in your healing process, and how do you use it now to connect with others?
Well, the story I told you about my $48,000,
Uh huh.
how I released. So for me, I have a lot of stories like that back my methods, that back my truth of, guys, I've been living like this for over 17 years. I know it's working. Do I have challenges? Yes. Am I scared that I just paid, thousands of dollars to book a retreat in 2026 when I don't even know who's going to sign up? Yes. But those are my stories.
Yep.
The stories of belief, the stories that, hey, this is how it happened, and it is going to happen for you. You are going to do it scared, but do it scared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, and even if no one showed up, because I think your retreat, we were talking about it earlier, is in Costa Rica. I
Mhm.
mean, even if no one did show up, you could have your own adventure of a lifetime.
Oh gosh, yes. But the funniest thing is the website's not ready yet. It'll be in a few weeks, and I already have um, 5 people signed up, and I'm not taking more than 25 at the retreat. And we're 1 year and 2 months away. My last retreat that I did, we sold out 10 months before the date. So I know for me, that's another story. I didn't know when I did it the first time. This is my 5th retreat.
Mhm.
So maybe I have a little bit more confidence knowing that it is going to work out, but it's a brand new clientele. I don't know who's going to be there. I know
Right.
I have return customers, but at the same time, I'm excited. That's what excites me is being scared. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's
You're,
where you learn more about yourself.
but that's how you grow, right? And that's how you learn
Exactly.
because there's a
Hmm.
lot of us that wish we would do it, but, or wish about it, but, or want it to be perfect. But
Hmm.
if you wait for it to be perfect, you might never start.
No, no. It's like having a baby. I don't have children, but if you're pregnant and you know that it's going to come in 9 months, you have no idea what your baby's going to look like, but you
Right.
trust the process. You didn't put in a little form saying, I want them to have blue eyes, brown hair. I want them to weigh 7 and 8 ounces because I don't want it too heavy. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to have it. No, you did it. So think of it that way. If I was able to have children, I didn't put a specific order. I believed that it was going to happen. I believed that whatever happens is going to happen. And it did.
Yep. And you followed your heart, which is exactly why we say your heart is your GPS to
Exactly.
happiness.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I know we have some common, we're going to talk about some common barriers that people
Mhm.
face when they're seeking fulfillment and a lot more. But right now, we need to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hey, hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul. Feeling good, let it loose, set it up, move and free. A little fun never hurt no one. Hey, hey, here we go. A little fun never hurt no one.
Feeling overwhelmed, like there's too much on your plate? Midlife can feel like it's too late to change, but it's not. Imagine turning that mental overload into clarity and learning to trust your instincts instead of always being in control. I'm Josee Madison, a transformational speaker, entrepreneur, and self awareness expert. I coach midlife professionals to reconnect with their intuition, ease the pressure, and find a more fulfilling path forward.
So, Jose, in your experience, what common barriers do people face when seeking fulfillment in their personal and professional lives?
They want a guarantee that it's got to work. And that never works. Because if you're waiting for a guarantee, I just had a client yesterday, we were talking, and they have a pretty good job, but they want to transition into having their own company. And he was saying, well, I got to wait till I'm a little bit more financially secure and have backing and this and that. And I said, well, that's the opposite. Because if you work on having enough money to start something and you now have enough money, you might as well retire because your goal is to have enough money. So now you don't need your company anymore. So, and he was kind of confused by that. And I said, the universe or God or whatever you believe in, when you take that leap, that's when you open up opportunities because subconsciously, there is no choice but to move forward. As opposed to having one foot in, one foot out, the universe has no space to have you grow. You can't grow at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
it does.
And the only guarantee when you want to do something new is belief in yourself. Like, I have faith that this is going to work. Faith and your heart, they'll never steer you wrong. Even if you think that that's a mistake, there's going to be a silver lining behind that. So certain things for me in my life that I expected to happen that didn't happen were actually a blessing. And so you can't have a guarantee of I won't do this unless I have that. That's impossible. It won't work. And that's what we get stuck on, I think.
Yeah, well, it can be, and that can be scary. I mean, I've always been one that embraces change, but sometimes, and I think sometimes the scariness comes in when you're not used to it being on you. You know, you've
Mm-hmm.
always been there to support everyone else, but when it comes to you, it's a slightly different thing sometimes, or it's like, okay, can I do it? You start like playing bad records in your head.
Exactly. And your limiting belief has to do a lot of times, from your conditioning. Like my client yesterday, he's like, a lot of people in my family are poo-pooing on the idea that I would like my own company. And I said, well, do they own companies themselves? Well, no, not really. No. Okay. Well, how do they know it's going to work or not work? They're putting their fears on you. So if you want to have your own business, you and I work together on that because I'm the one behind you pushing it, saying, yes, it is possible. So a lot of times we surround ourselves with people that are going to confirm our fears.
Yeah. And it
And
can be
then we're
well intentioned because they're just
absolutely.
concerned because that's all they know. And if you
Mhm.
grew up in the generation like I did, where you go to school, you go to college, get a degree, you go
Same
work
thing.
for somebody,
Yep.
that's what they expect. And if you do something out of that norm, it's like, oh my God, how can you make a living out of that? Or they worry about Social Security. I'm like, Social Security ain't gonna be there when I get there
Mhm.
anyway. I
Mhm.
don't care.
Well,
But
I mean, exactly. And so that goes to show too with my story when the financial advisor called me and I'm like, what money? How would I have known?
yeah,
I didn't know, but I had been taking risks. So moving forward. And let me tell you, when you step out, you create energetically, you create opportunities and you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that. Think about moments where you're like, oh, I can't jump. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
we
Think of
make it
the
10 times worse in our head.
exactly. So, of course, it's going to feel different because you've never done it before. Of course, you're going to be scared because you've never done it before. Of course, you don't know the outcome. You don't have a guarantee, but what you have is a desire. And each and every one of us have had a desire that's been uniquely placed in our heart. If you have those ideas, they're
Mhm.
meant for you, nobody else. You had ideas to have a TV show. That never dawned on me. For me, that wasn't an idea for me that was placed in my heart. It was in yours.
Oh,
So
it
we
was
all
presented to me and it scared the snot out of me, but I thought, well,
exactly.
how cool. I'm like, everybody loved the interviews. They kept calling it
Hmm.
a podcast. I'm like, it's just an interview. So I was like, psh. I'm like,
Hmm.
cool. I could reach more people. And it's been a blast. It's one of those things, like you said, you have to kind of push through, get out of the comfort zone,
Yeah.
and look what
And
happens.
that's when you work. For me, I've never gone without a coach because I've made big changes. At 52, I opened my yoga studio. 52 people retire at 52, and my husband was like, "You got it, babe. I believe in you." And I went to the bank with my little business plan. I'm like, I want to do this, and the bank's like, "You never had a business like that before." I've always been in business, but I never had a brick and mortar building, and I was like, well, I'll figure it out. And he's looking at me like, what in the world? But he called me back and he said to me, you remind me of my son who's now a rapper in California. I'm not going to say names, but he
Mhm.
said, I saw the belief in you and I can't refuse you. I can't refuse you, you know? And so I took a chance and things happened, opportunities opened, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll take this, and this. And 5 years later, you know, here we are. And I
Yeah.
my business in November 2019. 4 months later, COVID hit. Did I know that?
Nope.
No, but we are still open, and we've won, best yoga studio years and years for 5 years now since we've been open. So
Nice.
you just have to do it. And now I'm, transitioning into something else at 57. You know?
You know, right
So
there, I started a TV show when I was 56, and yep, I'll
there
be
you
57 by the end of the year. But I told people, I said, it's only a number.
yes, it is.
It's just a number.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, how do you encourage your clients to identify their true purpose amidst all the noise of everyday life? Because we know we get it. We get it from everywhere.
So I have a client who was a teacher, and she always wanted to be of service to people in another way. Um, and she was looking to become a massage therapist. And she would talk to me a lot about it and a lot about it. And one day I said, you can't have one foot in and one foot out. Your desire is so strong that energetically it's waiting for you to take the leap to inspire you to move towards other things. So before you make that leap, if you close your eyes and you think, what's the one thing that I could do now that could move me a little bit closer to my goal? And she said, well, I guess I could start school for massage therapy while I still have my job. That's doable. I said, whatever you think is doable and possible before, then do it. And that's what she did. But by doing that, she increased her confidence in her desire.
Nice.
And so I remember I was in Canada on vacation, and maybe about, I don't know, 6, 7 months later, I get a text from her saying, I did it. I left my job. And today she is so busy. It's unbelievable. And I saw
Wow.
her not too long ago, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen? I said, you did it. You did it by what is possible for me to do now. What is it that my heart truly feels? And maybe it's just happiness, right?
Right.
You can stay in your job, but happiness needs an action. When I have my class, some of my clients will say, I just want to be happy. Okay. Well, our brain doesn't know how to be something. It has to do something in order to feel it, right?
Right.
So then if you want to be happy, you have to do something to be happy. What are you prepared to do? Take more time for yourself, go on vacation. These little things are action oriented. So you don't have to do big changes in your life, but if you're thinking, I want to be rich. Oh, okay, that means I have to have an action behind that. I want to be healthy. Oh, my mind doesn't know how to do that. It needs an action. Oh, okay, then plan your action. I want to be, happy. Okay, my mind needs an action in order for me to feel that. So, what is my action plan? Everything you say I want to be has to be followed by an action first.
Yes.
And then that is very simple. It's a very simple, and this is why with my spiritually smarter path, the more you tap into your heart, the more you see that you have to trust into action in order to feel whatever you want to be.
Yep. I think a lot of us get stuck in the inaction and just the
Hmm.
wishfulness part, but not,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I want to be
uh,
rich. I wish I
yeah.
could be like you. I wish I could be like you. A lot of people tell me, oh, you're so lucky. I wish I could be like you.
Be like, what's
So,
stopping you?
exactly. But you know what's stopping them? Taking action.
Yeah.
That's all it is, taking action. And it can be very little minute actions. Some people don't need a lot to be happy, but they just don't know that they have to take action on something to be something. You got to do.
Yeah.
Be do, like Frank Sinatra would say.
Yeah, it's funny how other people can see things that seem so obvious, but sometimes we just kind of get lost and we don't see it
Mhm.
ourselves until someone says something, like the one that upset you, but then it's like you take a look at it, it's like, well, okay. Now you might want
Mhm.
to go back and thank them. you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Because he was actually telling me, what are you going to do in hindsight? What are you going to do about it? You want to be something? Then do it.
I had a
And
conversation with one of my mentors once because it's like I was getting so drained, and I'm like, why is it that I have all these people that are full of drama around me? He goes, it's not them, it's you. I'm just like, they're like, what?
Mhm.
And it took a minute, but then I realized what he was saying. And once I shifted that perception
Mhm.
and did not have the time and the tolerance for it, those
Yeah.
people went away and you started
Yeah.
to attract a whole new tribe. And then
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
And
So
that's the thing with my clients too. I have a lot of calls of people calling me like, "Oh my God, I'm so stuck in my life." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not here to enable this. I'm not here to listen to this. I'm here for people who are serious, whether they're entrepreneurs, CEOs, solopreneur. Um, if you're serious about doing the work, I'm going to be here for you. But if you keep asking me and wishing you want to be, we're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to get me or you anywhere.
right.
So, and sometimes I've had a client say, "Oh my God, you're harsh." I'm like, "No, I'm just not going to enable the behavior that has kept you stuck for years and years and years. You hired me to mirror what you can do. Let's get into action." And sure enough, she was like, "Oh, okay." you know Uh,
I know you shared a couple of them, but is there a success story from one of your clients that really exemplifies the impact of your work that you'd want to share?
so um another thing too is the power of your mind and your limiting beliefs, and that we tapped into really this one. She was married and had gone back to school because she wanted a promotion, but she needed a degree to do that. At the same time, she wanted to have a family. But when we first started talking, she had told me, I think I'd like to graduate before having my family. I think I want to finish this first. And for the whole time, she was in school trying to get pregnant, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And she was so frustrated. She's like, "I guess we'll have to adopt. I can't get pregnant. This is not possible. I'm so sad. And, we've been married for 5 years and this is not going to happen." And I said, "Let's backtrack a bit. Let's go back to your beliefs and to secret rules of order that you put in your mind. You've told me a few months or a few years ago, you didn't want a degree. You didn't want to get pregnant until you have your degree. You've been in school for 2 years, so you're not going to get pregnant. You've told your mind, I'm not going to get pregnant until I have my degree. Those are your secret rules. Honor that." She was upset a little bit for a while.
Mhm.
And then one night, it was in July, she asked me if I wanted to go for a walk with her. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I asked her how school went and all this stuff. And she's like, "Well, I found out that in the spring, I can't take the course that I wanted. I was due to graduate in April, but I'm going to have to graduate in December because that course is not being given in the spring break, the spring semester. I have to do 2 courses in December. So that'll be pretty crazy. I'll end up graduating in December." And then she stops and she looks at me and she says, "Because I'm due in March."
Nice.
So her subconscious and energetically,
Mhm.
she couldn't have graduated in March because she in April because she was due in March. She wanted to graduate before that. And I know this sounds really silly, but the power of your imagination and your mind, the rules, like when I speak in person, I teach people how to stretch their bodies without even moving, increase their flexibility without moving. That's how powerful our mind is. And when I told her that, she was like, "I was so angry when you told me that, but it's absolutely true. When I graduated, like when I got pregnant and the doctor said you're going to have your baby, you're due in March." And she's like, "Oh my God, Jose was wrong. I'm graduating in April." And then she found out about her
Of
course.
course. Yeah. Wow.
So as my job, I was helping her just kind of decipher the rules that she had set to herself, which that's what I do as well, is to remind you of your limiting beliefs and your secret codes that you've
Yeah.
put in your mind.
Well, and the mind is, I think, one of the most powerful tools that we have
Mm-hmm.
is to use it. But so, as a motivational speaker, what strategies do you use to engage an audience and to make your message resonate?
Again, like I said, when I'm speaking, I really teach on the power of the mind and how to listen to your heart. And the power of the mind is also increasingly powerful. And I do interact with the crowd to let them know we're going to increase your flexibility without moving. And so I have them stand up and I do this exercise for them to, and 100% it works. I mean, that's how it works, you know. But I really share my strategies for my smarter. We do a little exercise as I explain each letter, breathing exercise or thinking of an obstacle. So I'm really interactive with them so that when they leave, they really see like, oh my God, I don't need to do much to change. You know, so I'm really taking out and hopefully taking out the fear that there's too much to do. It's already in you. I'm just
Right.
here to lighten it up and shine the light to you going, oh, there it is.
It's like, didn't know that was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling stuck and unsure of where to start on their journey towards fulfillment?
It's never too late. If this dream is meant for you, it's going to happen. And so for me, being 57 and the things that are happening in my life right now, I'm like, oh my God, I should have done this earlier. But that's not true because there's a timing for all of that. And so my fears taught me growth. And then from there, I got fearful in it. And then I grew again and again and again. And so the timing of where you're at in your life is not an accident. But what's important is to take the action. That's the important part. And for me, working with a coach is a person who's going to lighten up that step for you and say, hey, I've been there. This is how I do it. Maybe not my way will work, but I can see how it could work for you. And we switch it up, but it's never too late. Heck, I got married at 45. I'd never been married before. I don't have kids. I started a brick and mortar business at 52, started some wellness retreats at 53. Now I'm
Yep.
going on I'm writing my book and hopefully getting on a book tour and hitting more stages as a transformational speaker. Gosh, when is it going to end? I don't know, but I'm getting excited. I can see myself at 75 on stage going, oh, just move on, you know?
I think that's awesome. And you kind of already jumped into my next question because I was going to say, looking ahead, what are some of your goals or dreams that you
Yeah.
still aspire to achieve in your personal and professional life?
Well, my personal life, my husband and I are celebrating 12 years married, and he's my best friend. It's unbelievable. Like, I just thank God, the universe, that I manifested this person. Again, it was, I'm writing a book about the journey of my heart, how it's going to be like a little scavenger hunt because all my stories, you have to figure out where did the heart lead me and how and when. And then also my Smarter Path course, the framework that will come out in January, and my retreats. That is in Costa Rica, January 24th to the 31st, 2026. Everything's going to be on the website soon. And my work as a coach, as a guide. I do different ways. I do one-on-one heart decoding sessions, which is 90 minutes. And we just work 90 minutes. You talk with me and we discuss things that you're stuck on. I ask you a couple of questions, and sometimes I can read between the lines. Within 90 minutes, you have a clear path of, okay, this is where I'm stuck. This is what I have to do. Or my life coaching is, 3, 6 months, or a year. I have clients that are with me for a year. I have one that's been with me for 2 years, because she's just growing and changing. And she kind of has access to me for when she's scared. Like, what do I do? So we go through the Smarter Path and we just open your heart into all these things. So I'm really, and there's so many other things I have in my mind that they'll just happen. There's
Yeah.
nothing's impossible.
No, not when you have the right mindset.
Mm-mm.
So when you say heart decoding, is that what you mean? Listening to them and just kind of reading between the lines because they may
Yes.
be saying something, but not
Yes.
totally saying what they need to.
Just like my client, when she said, I don't want to have a family until I graduate, that for her, she didn't even realize that she had implanted that in her mind. But when I took it out of her heart, she's like, oh, I forgot about that, you know? And I point out those silent, because sometimes when we have a problem, it's deeper than that. There's something else that's not, excuse me, been said that I hear, and I go, let's backtrack and visit this in this point. And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And that's what I do. So
Yeah, it's always different to get somebody else's perspective because what you
Mhm.
think you might be saying or feeling, and someone else that can, I
It's a
guess,
different whole
call
layer.
you out on it if you, for
There you
lack of a better
go.
word, you get
I
called out
call
on
you
it.
out on your BS, but BS for me is belief systems.
There you go. There you go. And you have a newsletter, right?
Yes, I
I've
do.
got the QR code up there. So
Yes.
what can people expect from the newsletter?
So we're just about to release a smarter course, a little mini course to kind of help you see what this real 6 month course or 7 month course, self-based course, basically. So there's going to be little exercises for each, I think it's 10 weeks, to help you see and open up, start working with the smarter path, the smarter framework. I share a lot of different ways of breathing techniques, journaling. I talk about a lot of wellness, and guides on how to do certain things. And I have special offers as well. Sometimes I have discounts for heart decoding. I offer my services as a life coach. So, but there's always some good golden nuggets in there to make sure that I inform my readers about spirituality, and it's not that complicated.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful too, because it's always nice to get those other, little nuggets. And I love how you're going to have a kind of like a little workbook or a work through
Mhm.
thing as you
And
go.
it's like a little mini e-course. So every day you're going to have an email with a little mini lesson to get you started on your spiritual path.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is getting started.
Mm,
Everybody's,
exactly, the action.
you got to get
I'm the
started.
action part.
Yes.
I'm here to help you with your actions.
So is your website the best place for people to connect with you?
Yes, they can connect me at www at joseemadison.com. They can connect with me through my newsletter as well. They can reply to the newsletter and say, "Hey, I need information about that." So I always make sure that me and my assistant, we're on top of that. If somebody has a question and they're not sure, oh, let me just reply to this newsletter, and she or I will read it. Um, and then I'm also on LinkedIn under Josee Madison. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me there too, there's lots of posts and indication and guides and insights that I share as well.
So since you have all this wonderful knowledge and meditation or methods, do you ever think you might do a YouTube channel and share some of those
Yes.
as well?
Yes, that is in the works as well. There are so many things on the table at the moment that I have to prioritize what comes first. Right now, I'm finishing up on my course. There will be a podcast. I'm probably going to have some special guests talking about the heart, emotional intelligence, spirituality, everything that has to do with taking risks, making a life for yourself, by yourself, through your heart, and then a YouTube channel as well. So I was kind of thinking if I wanted to record my YouTube channel as a podcast, so that may be, killing two birds with one stone. So if that's a saying,
Yeah.
I'm French Canadian. Sometimes I say sayings all over that. My husband's like, "What did you just say?"
I know sometimes people, well, some of our sayings, I'm not even sure why we came up with some of them. I had that conversation with a previous guest. I'm like, yes, why do we say that? I was like, that's just
Well, the one that
not right.
boggles my mind the most is when my husband will say, and I know I'm going to butcher it, half a dozen and six of the
6 in one and half a dozen in another.
I'm like, what does that actually mean? He goes, it means it's the same thing. I'm like, well, why don't you just say it's the same thing?
Exactly. I had a friend that used to say that all the time. 6 in one, half a dozen in another, because half a dozen is six. So yeah, it's this. Yeah, I have no idea where we picked up half of these things. I understand in America we are good at adding all kinds of things,
Mhm.
and our dictionary keeps getting bigger and bigger because we make them actual
Yes.
words.
Yes.
But so lastly, before we go, what is the one key takeaway that you'd like the audience to remember after hearing your story?
It's not too late. And if you're afraid, feel that fear. Don't ignore it. And try and see if you can find a strength with that fear. What strength is the fear trying to um, extinguish? And really pay attention and go within. Don't be afraid to go in your heart. People think that they have all their secrets and I have a heartbreak and everything. That's not where it all lies. That's in your ego. Your heart lies where your light is when you were born. That's what it is. So there's nothing mean or bad in your heart. Your heart has the light of who you are meant to be. And I encourage you to follow that. And whoever says to you, you can't do that, this is silly, this is crazy, they just want what you have. And you have it because you were born to have it. And I encourage you to go for it. And if you're scared, call me. I'll help you out.
I was going to say, you can find a whole new tribe that will be there to support you.
Oh, I
I think some
love
of
my
our crazies are
guys.
the most creative anyway, right?
Oh, I love my tribe. I just love, everybody's just so gifted and amazing and scared, just like me. I'm scared too, but do it scared, and you'll see how it feels. It'll empower you.
Yeah, rather than letting it shut you down.
Hmm.
And if you fail, I don't look to me, I don't look at things as failures. It was just a lesson learned,
Hmm.
and you move on,
Hmm.
because none of us are flawless. None of us, have never made a mistake. We've all made a mistake.
Oh
I like
gosh,
to say we're perfectly imperfect.
I made so many mistakes in my life, but that's what made me who I am today, because I've learned who I was and who I wasn't.
Yeah.
Instead of wondering what if, there's a saying in French that I can't really say it in English, but this whole what if saying it gets you nowhere. But will take you to across the world if you want.
Yeah, instead of saying I can't, not change it to how can I,
Hmm.
or I can, either way. But yeah, because it all has to do with rewiring the
Yes,
thought
and
process in the
also,
brain.
yeah, absolutely, and also, instead of asking why am I in this situation in my life, why is this happening to me, ask yourself, how can I get out of it? That's the difference. Like, you and I are walking and you scratch your knee and you're bleeding and you say to me, why am I bleeding? You're the answer is going to be the problem. Well, Laura,
Right.
it's because you fell. But if you were to say to me as you're bleeding, how can I heal this? You'd get a completely different answer. You'd get the solution, which
Right.
is, let's get a band-aid.
Yep.
I learned that too. Instead of asking why, ask how.
How? Yep. That's a big thing, because a lot of times we always go to why or this or blaming others, but
Mhm.
we are the only ones that can change what's going on.
Yeah.
You
Go
just got to
from victim to
figure it out.
victor.
Yeah, I like that. There you go. So, Jose, I want to thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your stories. Um, it's been a pleasure, and I love your acronym, the Smarter, and how it's so different and heart centered.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. I hope to grow my tribe to celebrate who we are, our uniqueness, and just, die happy. That's my goal. I want to die happy.
Yep. I
Simple.
I look forward to seeing what else you got coming, because I know you're not done.
Oh,
I
no,
know,
I'm not.
like I said, it's just a number, and we're just getting started.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. Well, thank you
so
so much for your time. Thank you for your listeners. I appreciate you for taking the time to listen. And I love your episodes too. So I feel very honored to be here. Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it. And obviously, anyone that is can resonate with what Jose is sharing, you're heart centered and you want to be part of her tribe, definitely reach out to her. As you can see, she's very easy to talk to. And I truly thank you for being here. And we
Thanks.
will see everybody next week.
Yes. Thank you. Bye, guys.